Okay, so we're out. We're in a cave, so we're in. Drive until I get to the crystal and then turn around is the instruction for getting forward in like the main story, our goal. Our other instruction is to go to the east end of Green something, Green Vale or something. How do you get to the east end of a place? How do you get to the green place in the first place? Not sure. Like, I did not come back out to a recognizable city map like we did in the last act. Now I'm just in a cave, and I'm not fond of it. It would be pretty concerning to be in a cave this massive underground, like, such a huge cave you can almost forget it's a cave, but it's still like, one, there's just like this crushing feeling whenever you have an open enough chasm like this, that like, it might all come crumbling down at any moment. Like, what's holding all of that great weight up? It's unclear. But also, like, I've been deep underground a few times, and just like you become hyper aware somewhat of like your lack of escapes, I suppose. Like the way you came in might be the only way out of the entire place, and so much of our life is designed around having multiple exits, in part because that's just a safety hazard in general. But unlike a house collapse or whatnot, there's like pretty much there's an incredibly low chance of anyone coming for you if a cave-in happens, especially if it's not like a famous documented area. I'm gonna go east because the east side of Green was one of our goals. 8129, you go to the crystal and turn around. Right, that wasn't even the east direction, was it? Right, I went west on accident, so that was not a brilliant moment on my part. The place I came from is gone. Self-storage. Let's see. Shannon's workshop, storage facility. Find the crystal, then turn around. I am already here. That's from the... yeah, they're mine. The Bureau of Secret Tourism. Esoteric excursions for the intrepid and curious. All directions start from the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces. These tunnels are a series of arterials, excavated by runoff from an underground river which long ago evaporated, now the tangled vessel of marooned echoes. Drive clockwise until you reach the feather. Pause for a moment to consider the cave walls. Reverse direction, and drive counterclockwise until you hit the birdhouse. Now turn around again, and you're almost upon it. To return, simply find the feather again and turn around. The river tunnels. The DYMAXION gallery. The mineral springs. The deep valley. Happy hitchhiking. Drive clockwise until you reach the feather. Maybe I should ignore the self-storage for now. So is it built entirely around turning around at certain locations? Will I find the crystal again here? Yes. 65. So now when I turn around, will I be back at the Bureau? I am. Well, if this is the circle, then clockwise is the crystal direction. So I want to go this way, but I don't want to stop at the crystal. I want to go until I get to the feather. The pipe organ. Staircase. The projector. What is this place? The bell. The tree. The sprocket. I feel like the weird way we navigated the other memory was like a hint about this. The feather. Yeah, I feel like the way that we navigated the weird museum audio thing was kind of like similar to this, although that was supposed to be played after this, I guess. So now I've turned around at the feather. The birdhouse. I'm not looking for the birdhouse, I'm looking for the river tunnels. Shit. Oh shit, I was supposed to do the birdhouse. Is it still there? The nest. The tunnels. Maybe that still counted as me turning around? So I was looking for the river tunnels, right? The tunnels are described as a series of arterials, excavated by runoff from an underground river which long ago evaporated, now the tangled vessel of marooned echoes. They're surprisingly large. A distant scratching sound catches Conway's attention, from a tunnel leading downwards. Another tunnel runs into the darkness to the left. Left? Conway and Shannon go left. The tunnel widens a bit. The air is cooler here. Go left? A faint mewing reverberates the tunnel. A small, ragged cat sits on a ledge carved into the wall. Seeing Conway and Shannon, it darts into another tunnel. What? And that's the end of that, huh? The feather. Dude, these are spooky as shit. The DYMAXION gallery. A gallery of mislaid futures. Mislaid futures. Abandoned on lonely highways as American industrial design shifted its gaze to the intangible. Drive counterclockwise towards the TV. When you reach the TV, drive clockwise to the antenna. Now turn again and head just past the barn. Then find the TV again if you want to leave. So counterclockwise, TV antenna. I have to head back first. A sandwich? That was like a cinder block. What the fuck? The icosahedron. Oh god, am I not back? The cathode ray. The bottle. The TV. So let's look for the antenna. Dude, there are so many items here. How are they now? I don't really know how they're like organized. Or what this means exactly. The antenna. I'm looking for a prompt saying that it's time to turn around, but it's not coming up. The barn, the gallery. The brochure describes this place as a gallery of mislaid futures, abandoned on a lonely highways as American industrial design shifted its gaze to the intangible. It is a large warehouse, full of oddly shaped vehicles, blimp-like, rusted vessels, mostly painted in a dull green that has now faded toward brown. No path has been carved to navigate between them, and many have been damaged enough to leave menacing bits of metal running jaggedly through their small open spaces. It's all a visitor can do to stand at the edge of the building, neck craned, trying to get a glimpse of something. Now we go back to the TV. The caves are changing size. Like I'm on a crazy spiral staircase. Maybe I'm going the wrong way to find the TV again. The H frame. Things went very communication equipment-y in a way they weren't before. So now if I come down here, will the TV still be there? Yes. The other thing's not there. Projector. Ah! What does it mean? It's hard to tell when I'm back. I was under the impression I was supposed to reset back to the bureau every time that I succeed, but now I'm not sure. The mineral springs. These mineral springs radiate with vigor and sweat youth from the pores of the cave walls, its sweet dampness evaporating and then recollecting on the ruddy faces of rejuvenated bathers. Drive clockwise from the feather to the feather, then come back to the talon. Let's stay clockwise till we get to a feather. This is fucking bizarre. Every episode I really don't know what we're going to be doing in this game. And I guess that's part of the charm. But it's all menacing. Like, this is a place that defies human understanding. And perhaps my own presence in it. That worries me. The talon. Yeah, now we're in bird themes. So every time you turn around at something, I think you get a bunch of themed items built around that item. And one of them's the correct answer. You can see it like crystallizing. And once it solidifies, then you've made your choice. As described in the brochure, these mineral springs radiate with vigor and sweat youth from the pores of the cave walls, its sweet dampness evaporating and then recollecting on the ruddy faces of rejuvenated bathers. The air does have a warmth and fragrance to it that seems to relax the nostrils. Shannon encourages Conway to rest his leg in the water. Let's rest. Conway rests for a while. The water's warmer than it looks and strangely soothing. Think about the day's work. Conway closes his eyes and reflects on the day's work. He awoke at 5. He moved some of Charlie's old books from the barn to Lysette's living room. She liked to look at them sometimes, but he knew this would be a difficult day. He fed Blue. He made other small deliveries, picked up a package Lysette had waiting for her at the post office, and then drove out to look for the last address on his manifest. Leaving the spring, Conway finds a few aquatic insects nestled in his pant leg. He leaves them behind. Oh. the spring is where we are right now, not in this flashback. The flashback ended between these two paragraphs, so I was like, what? Like, he's like checking out on his deliveries and stuff. There's like, now there's aquatic insects in his leg, and I'm like, excuse me? That would be a little eerie. A little trippy that they stay here. Meditation tunnels. It is recommended as a site for meditation, an introspective labyrinth through which to walk one's concerns slowly, like a breathing exercise. It's interesting finding insects here just because, on some level, almost all life on Earth is directly tied to the sun. The sun breeds all of this plant life that photosynthesizes, and then so much of life consumes that plant life, and then so much of other life consumes that life, and so on. There's like a connection to the sun. But there's weird outliers that can be stranger. Like the ocean floor is full of life. Maybe not full of life, but it contains life. And similarly here in this cave, we're cut off from the sun and we are quite a distance away from it, and yet there seems to be life anyway. And so then you got to be wondering, is the sun finding its way here in a different, indirect way? The way that this chain of energy can travel? Or is there some alternate thing? I think about like the ideas of like somewhat early in the creation of a solar system, a planet can be flung from the solar system and become a roaming planet that just doesn't orbit a sun. And that would completely cut it off from the primary way that life tends to happen, as far as we know. But there are other forms of energy that aren't the sun, like geothermal vents. Like the Earth itself contains and releases energy with its magma and its mantle and its core and its tectonic plates and just whatever else is going on a given planet. Like there's energy that is being processed within the planet itself that doesn't just come from the sun. So you can imagine almost this sci-fi concept of like a planet that is full of sightless creatures that have maybe never really gotten its energy from anywhere else. They just get them from like the geothermal vents of the planet, perhaps. Maybe they even live underground or in the ocean's depths or so on. And they would just be fundamentally different because it would be life forms that don't necessarily perceive. Who knows if they'd ever really reach any level of significance necessarily, but they would just be these like sightless creatures leeching off of location-based energy on a dark planet, flinging through the void in the infinite expanse between solar systems and galaxies, just in nowhere. The idea of something that dark and strange rocketing through space. I always have the reflexive fear of like a collision, but space is so empty that it probably would never meet anything ever again. It's like the way that like deep down we're made up of all these atoms and so on, but they're so small and so spaced out that they don't really collide with each other the same way. Like there's so much more space between each atom than there is between each, like than there is like consisting of each atom. That said, there could be indirect sources of nutrition. Maybe the spring is connected to above ground areas and like bacteria and plant matter and whatnot kind of proceeds downstream into the abyss, and it's enough for the insects to survive off of. I think of like there's a whale falls are one of the ways that we find out about deep ocean organisms, because it's so nearly impossible to explore the ocean floor, the deep, deep parts of it, that we have very little understanding of what kind of creatures are down there and what they do and so on, or how they survive and what they look like and things like that, just because it's so completely inhospitable to humanity and any of the tools we have for exploring it. And let's be honest, capitalism doesn't exactly like prioritize that kind of exploration. There's not a lot of profit to be gained from aimlessly exploring the ocean floor just to see what we find along the way, and so there's not really that big of a push. It's kind of an indie project by comparison, which may explain all the more why we always have this idea that we say that we know more about space than we do about our own oceans on our own planet and so on. It's like, well, not a lot of encouragement to check out the floor of the planet. But whale falls are really significant because a whale is an incredibly massive organism, and it's just so much living flesh. And when something that big dies, it sinks all the way down to the ocean floor, and it's just this huge corpse. And so all these secret organisms throughout the depths of the planet just kind of come skittering out and start feasting on this incredibly massive bounty. Like, it's a fucking feast. It's a banquet. And essentially an entire ecosystem can spring up just around this massive fallen creature. We saw versions of this in in Subnautica, with those like massive skeletons we saw in some of the deeper parts of the planet, and how there was like an ecosystem thriving entirely around those carcasses, it seemed. That was based around the idea of a whale fall. And there's also a version of that in other thing. I lost the train of thought about which other example came to mind. Whoops. You get an entire ecosystem just around that particular organism, and it's like, why, for the amount of time it takes to consume that creature, there's just suddenly this area that's just like this living colony. An entire little society springs up of all these different organisms that profit in various ways, either directly off of the whale's corpse itself or the other creatures that the whale attracts with its body. To the point where scientists found, and like every time this happens, like there's dozens of new discoveries of like animals that have never been chronicled before, and you're like, what the fuck is that? We didn't know that existed, because it's so unexplorable down there that having that kind of bait is so useful. So they come out and you learn new things because all these things come out for the whales. So scientists have latched onto this idea, and they do intentional whale falls. It's like when you have a whale that you know is going to die or whatever, or you just have a whale carcass for whatever reason, really. Like, I don't think they're killing whales or anything like that, but whales die. And when you have a whale carcass, you can intentionally dump it somewhere where you're equipped to observe, and just the fact that like it's going to be there in advance because you're the one putting it there in the first place, and then you can just check that shit out. Set up your cameras, have all your people ready, and know in advance that the whale fall is going to happen in that location. Like, you're way more equipped to learn from it. And each time they just make leaps and bounds in discovering all these new bizarre things on our own planet that we just didn't know were there. I don't know. That's the tangent that I went on. That's where my brain went when we had the weird aquatic insects being on my pant legs deep in a cave. I swear I had 2 examples though, and I can't think of what the other one was. Huh. So to get to the meditation tunnels, we drive clockwise to the Scarecrow. Pendulum. I'd be pretty concerned if I was underground and then the space around me was warping and changing. That's pretty terrifying. Because the only salvation you have is knowing how to get back out. So if you don't know how to get back out, you're completely fucked. I guess I must have not turned around at the feather yet or something. There's the feather again, but I think I'm outside of it now. Yeah, we're not stuck with nests anymore. Now we're starting to get farming items. Okay, antlers doesn't really fit that. Scarecrow. Now we're looking for the pendulum. What the... What's that? What? I mean, I was looking for the pendulum, but what have I found? That's odd. What? Just, you know, deja vu. Same here. I always feel kind of embarrassed when that happens. Like I'm in a play, but I don't know the lines. Oh well. What? Is that what these caves have looked like this whole time? Oh, that's unnerving. Like a rib cage. A rib cage and an endless expanse of darkness, a great weight overhead, and darkness. What are we... Was that 3 people? At first I was like, maybe it's those card players or the band, but no, I think it's the workers that drowned. The bat feeder. I want to see bats. The pendulum. The pendulum is a banjo or something like that. A mandolin? I don't know. You don't usually expect the pendulum to be an instrument. Animal bones. I want to look at that, but you can't. The brochure for these mossy tunnels recommends taking them as a site for meditation, an introspective labyrinth through which to walk one's concerns, slowly, like breathing exercise. The narrow tunnel extends to the right, another to the left. Let's go right this time. Conway and Shannon crawl on hands and knees through a slick passageway. The moss is glowing more brightly now. Keep right. A narrow tunnel extends to the right, another to the left. Left? Conway and Shannon enter a cramped passage. A narrow tunnel extends to the right, another to the left. The moss begins to glow. Left? They crawl on their hands and knees through a slick passageway. The moss is glowing brightly now. Close our eyes? What? I don't know what to make of the choices I'm making right now in some of these places. Like what to think about it. It's also still bothering me trying to think of like what game I played where there was like a... that would have been a good example alongside Subnautica. Why did I have the thought that there was another example? Oh well. It's the kind of shit that drives you crazy. It's like reverse deja vu. I guess closing my eyes was a form of meditation. A labyrinth for walking through one's concerns slowly, like a breathing exercise. How did I leave, though? Are we just having discontinuities where we don't fully experience what our characters are experiencing, or are they just kind of warping from place to place and not necessarily even questioning it?